International Interdisciplinary Online Conference on Assessment and Diagnostic Practices for Specific Learning Disorder. Before I proceed further, please note this session is being recorded and we have started the recording. This session is being recorded purely for the academic purpose with no commercial agenda. The organizing committee has obtained the permission of the resource persons for the same. Before I proceed further, I would like to quote what Thomas Edison once said. He said, "If there is a way to do it better, find it." We all have gathered here because we all are in the quest to be a better educators. One way to achieve this goal is by learning the good practices from each other. So let us take this journey ahead as we start yet another illuminating day. Now, I welcome Dr. Amit Misal, Associate Professor at Hashu Advani College of Special Education, to introduce Mona Gajre ma'am, our first guest speaker of the day. Over to you, Amit sir.
Thank you, Ms. Vinita Khedkar. I take the opportunity and introduce Dr. Mona Gajre ma'am to all of you. But before I proceed, I would say energy seen in your work by looking at your contribution to this. It introduces you before you even speak to us. Here I go. Dr. Mona Gajre ma'am is a professor in pediatrics. She's in charge Pediatric Neurodevelopmental Division of Neurology Center and Epilepsy Center Developmental Pediatrics, LTMMC Sion. Madam has overall 22 to 23 years of teaching experience, where fellowship trainees in State University affiliated fellowship in Learning Disability and Developmental Pediatrics, fellowship in Pediatric Neurology and Epilepsy, undergraduate students like MBBS, postgraduate, MD, DNB, nursing, OT, PT, SLP students, and so on. Moreover, to know, Madam is a chairman of IEC Media Labs. Madam is member of various Indian and international organizations. Madam is in Indian Academy of Pediatrics Society of Development and Behavioral Practices. There too she is member. Madam has contributed a lot to research, nearly 3 international trials and 5 national trials. Overall, 60 to 70 presentations Madam have done, more than 30 seminars and conferences Madam have given lectures as guest lectures. 54 publications Madam own at national and international journals, books, and chapters. Moreover, I would wind up, and at the end, I would say Madam's main areas of interest are neurology and epilepsy and developmental pediatrics. So thank you so much. We welcome from a full AXE team and all the participants here present for this second day of International Interdisciplinary Online Conference, ma'am. Thank you so much, and over to Dr. Mona Gajre.
Thank you at the outset, the organizers, for inviting me for this prestigious international webinar. And thank you, Dr. Amit, for a very eloquent introduction. May I have the first slide, please? Yeah, so good morning all. Let's move on to the first slide. Next slide, please. So coming to the definition of specific learning disability, I'm sure you all have had a buffet of presentations over the last one day and the introduction which happened on Tuesday. And I'm sure that you all have come across cross-cultural and cross-country global definitions of LD which are there. But coming to India, let us start with our journey for specific learning disabilities, how it began, and you will now see how the definitions have evolved with time. And I'm going to go more through the legal framework and the certification process and what we can do post-certification, etc., the benefits. So coming to the specific learning disability, it was SNDT College of Special Education, which at the outside, maybe around the mid 90s, which came up with the definition of specific learning disability. Then we started following the DSM-4 criteria. Of course, there was the PWD Act, the first act, 1995. It took almost 2 decades later to come up with the latest act of RPWD, which is revised Persons with Disability Act 2016. We also have the DSM-5 criteria, which we were using before the act came in place. But since LD, learning disability certification, has a lot of legal connotations, because the access to educational, social, your financial, etc. benefits are now regulated or streamlined through the act. I would like to say to all that this is the definition that we currently follow as for the certification process. So the specific, as per the RPWD Act 2016, the learning disabilities are grouped as heterogeneous group of conditions. We know that it is not like one cap fits all kind of a condition. It is a whole spectrum from mild, moderate, severe to borderline cases or at-risk cases. So it's a heterogeneous group of conditions wherein there is a problem in processing language, either spoken or written, and that may manifest as a difficulty in comprehending or either understanding, that is, or speaking, and difficulty in reading, writing, spelling, or to do maths calculation. And so these conditions include our group under perceptual disabilities, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and developmental aphasia. Next slide, please. So coming to the prevalence of SLD in India, the first reference that I got was from the RCI book for 2006. It is mentioned that the Sion Hospital LTMG had about 2,225 kids visiting the hospital for certification of any kind of disability. And 640, that is 28%, were diagnosed to have SLD out of the entire lot of say children who are visiting us for multiple disabilities. In 2018, Kurian, can I have the previous slide, please? Kurian and James came up. There's a reference of SLD prevalence as per the subtypes by James and Kurian, and they gave that 12.5% was dysgraphia, 11 was dyslexia, and 10 was pure dyscalculia. So we know that most of the children that we do get is an overlap of almost multiple combinations of either of the two, or in some types, or the maximum is usually an overlap of 3 conditions. So 2020, we have recently published an article, and we say that the prevalence of SLD in India ranges from 5 to 15%. Next slide, please. Just showing you some of the data that we have at Sion from 1997 to 2020, because the clinic was established in 1995. You can see from 1997 to 2019 onwards, and 2020, I think there is a last table there which is a little amiss here. But you can see that when we began, the children which were referred to us for poor scholastic performance was about 159, and children certified for about 69, that is almost 43%. So they were the referral was very specific, that or probably very less numbers were sent to us. Most of all from the elite class who were aware about the presence of SLD. And as we go, the shift came very clearly because of the movie Tare Zameen Par, and you can see that the numbers suddenly hiked up after that. And then between 2013, 14, 15, we were almost seeing about 7,000 children, about 7,500 to 8,000 children annually referred for poor scholastic performance, and out of that 10% was certified as SLD. In 2020 numbers, because of the COVID, we have seen only about 1,500 to 2,000 children annually this year. Next slide, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. So this is just a pictorial depiction that you can see from 1997 to 2006 we were okay, 2007 slightly increasing, and then we suddenly peaked in 2013 because of you guys, because of the widespread awareness which was happening in the community. Next slide, please. Yeah. So coming to the bill, because this is a very important part of the structure for disabilities in this country. The Right of Persons with Disability Bill 2016. The salient feature is that essentially from 1995 to 2016, we now have an increase in the type of disabilities. Earlier it was 7 and now it is 21. If you want, then you can click a snapshot of this. We have struggled for 20 years to come this path, and I'm sure the path ahead will be a little better, because I will further on in my discussion about what are the plans and the future policies that we are putting across to the government. I'm sure you will be, I can have your inputs too, but I'll surely share them with you. So earlier in the earlier bill 1995, when we have struggled multiple times with the authorities, that meant specific learning disabilities, speech language disabilities, and autism were all grouped under mental illness. And so now they have a separate category. So we are happy that they are now have a definite space in right to space in the act or in the bill. So next slide, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so just to brief you, the act is of course about a 30-60 pages bill, which is tabled and it is available detailed on the website. It was gazetted in December 2016, and those who would want to see the act, please, I request you all to go to the bill to know that the act is not just at the educational and the huge financial and economic benefits that the act offers. So there is a clear-cut definition of 21 benchmark disabilities. The benchmark word is extremely important when we talk about disabilities in a legal framework, be to get concessions, either the educational concessions, the economic concessions, or social inclusion. Okay, so benchmark means the disability percentage has to be more than 40. I will come to how that has evolved for learning disabilities specifically. So it gives a clear-cut definition of the 21 benchmark disability, and that was the definition which I showed you in my first presentation slide. It also tells us that what are the recommendations which have to be given for the disabilities and the regulations for certification of disabilities. In the sense, it tells you who is the certifying authority. This has come for the first time ever, and what should the board consist of, who is the signing authority, how does the process move it from national to state level, and how are the policies to be implemented at the state level. So generally the way it works is, after the bill came in 2016 by the parliament, once it was passed, the center generally gives the state 2 years to formulate their guidelines. The Maharashtra government notation and Maharashtra government's GR has come in 2018 June, and so with that notation, that is what is happening in all the centers for certification which are under the government authorities. So in addition to that, the act details about what is the provision and grants for person with disability, the role of the government in safeguarding the rights of the person, and what is the punishment for fraudulently awaiting any benefits meant for the persons with benchmark disability. Now, coming to the role of fraudulent benefits, let me tell you, we have lots of stories to talk about, because we know that this is a very narrow margin where the children can get some kind of educational concessions, and there has been duplication of certificates, etc. I will talk that later in the next slides. Next slide, please. So coming to the act again, it was officially published, as I said, in December 2016. Earlier from 21, it came on to 7. From 7 disabilities, it came on to 21 disabilities, and they were labeled as benchmark disabilities. So the disability should not be anything less than 40%. The local authority within the state is the municipality which looks after the certification. That is clearly mentioned in the bill. the person with disability is defined as a person with long-term physical, mental, intellectual impairment, which hinders his participations in the society equally with others. The competent authority as designated by the Act is a government designated person with requisite qualifications and expertise. The certifying authority is a medical superintendent. CMO stands for Chief Medical Officer, or CS stands for a superintendent. And the certifying authority is a pediatrician or a pediatric neurologist wherever available. Of course, there has been an amendment after the Act came in, and it is an official thing that psychiatrists also can lead the authority, the certifying authority committee of in centers which were previously before 2016 established as certifying authorities. Can I have the next slide, please? So the coming to the team members which are there for or professionals which can carry out the certification process. So medical authority, as I said, that the chief is a medical superintendent, which is in our case the dean. We have two deans at medical colleges in Mumbai, and in the state also we have the academic dean. And we have the clinical dean, which is equivalent to a medical superintendent post, a chief medical officer or a CMO. This is generally prevalent in peripheral hospitals of the municipal corporation, which we would commonly known as, say, Cooper, Rajawadi, which is including in the certification now and probably going to be spread in other peripheral hospitals. And CS stands for civil surgeon. These are generally heading the district level state hospitals or smaller level hospitals which are there. And civil surgeon, of course, is available in a big hospital like JJ Hospital, the state government hospital. So, or any other equivalent authority which is notified by the state government, which will head the certification program. Now, with the state notification coming in 2018, the state has agreed that MS, CMO, civil surgeon will be the equivalent authority for who will be heading the certification process. And the actual working team for certifying will be a pediatrician, pediatric neurologist where available, and the team member inclusive of a clinical or a rehab psychologist, an occupational therapist, a specialist, stroke, a special educator, stroke, a teacher trained for assessment of SLD. We go on to the next slide, please. Now coming to how the structure functions in our country. So at the center, Central Advisory Board for Disability, headed by the Central Disability Commissioner, which is usually an IS cadre commissioner. On the state level, we have a State Advisory Board on Disability, and our Disability Commissioner is presently there, and he is accessible in Pune. We have a district level committee where the districts are there in each part of the state, and there is of course defined rules for punishment for fraudulent practices in the district of Mumbai. I talk about Mumbai, main and suburban Mumbai. It is the medical authority resides with the MS, that is the medical superintendent, the chief medical officer, or the civil surgeon. And at the local level, the screening school committee, the head of the committee is the principal. Now, coming to the validity of the certificate, so these are the changes which have come in with the Act. The certificate, if done at 8 years, the recertification is to be done at 14 years, and a permanent certification at 18 years when the child completes 18 years. So less than 18 years of age, if the child has been certified, whether it is a government or a state government, it is considered as a temporary certificate. More than 18 years of age, it could be 18 years, 1 day and beyond, is a permanent certificate. Now, why the permanent certificate is required? and this kind of a structure is present across all the wherever required across all the 21 benchmark disabilities. This is not just specific for learning disability, it is present across 21 benchmark disability. So why we need the permanent certificate beyond 18 is of course for the job reservations, for the to partake the government approved schemes, for financial benefits, etc. So we move on to the next slide, please. Yeah, so now coming to the grassroots level, how the structure has been defined in the Act. At the school, what is the screening process supposed to be? It is a very simplified structure. Every school should have a screening committee headed by the principal. Teachers from public or private schools are free to do SLD screening from class 3 or age 8 onwards, and there is no specific SLD screen test mentioned in the Act. So they are free to use a curriculum based or any formal test, etc. If they find that the screening test is positive, then they have to refer for diagnosis further on. Of course, the role of the teacher is extremely important to take a parental involvement and interview for parental involvement of and whether the environment is suitable for a child's education. So to rule out socio-cultural factors, and of course we welcome all the inputs which are extremely helpful to us during the diagnostic process, because we are seeing the child as a snapshot. One time when the child comes to us, you guys have been seeing the child for so many years, right? So along with the principal will give a referral note along with the class teacher interview and input class committee headed by the principal along with the screening which has been done, and this all has to be referred pediatrician or to the district hospital or to the medical colleges for diagnosis purpose. Next slide, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, great. So just coming to the diagnosis. Now, again, this will be a lot of repetition of what I told you before, but this is a team approach consisting of the clinical psychologist, assessment of pediatrician for a detailed neurological examination, including vision and hearing, to rule out SLD mix, because as I told you in the, or rather there was a picture which was downloaded by my team in the previous slide that no, please don't change the slide, that's okay, that these are all invisible disabilities, and to make them visible we have to kind of do the further testing to rule out other conditions which mimic SLD. Can I have the presentation, please? Is this projected? So come, are the slides projected, Dr. Amit or Shweta?
Yeah, no, ma'am. Even I'll just check with it.
Okay, please. So just continuing with the thing is that after the diagnosis is done, after the neurological exam is done by the pediatrician, the clinical psychologist, as per the defined rules or regulations, will conduct a psychosocial, psychoeducational assessment. The IQ which has been given as per the Act is as the KBI or the MESIC, and there is a defined cutoff of more than 85, for which the child will qualify for an educational testing. The battery which is mentioned is NIMHANS battery for SLD. I know there will be a lot of questions regarding this, but I'm just talking about what is given in black and white, what is available in the bill. Now, so this is what is there as per the Act. Now, what are the benefits of the Act? First is, of course, the educational benefits is there of the Act. So we know it is signed by the certified, submitted to the school. School, of course, doing the examination for 10th boards onwards, though there is a court ruling from the Maharashtra that up to 10th grade concessions have to be given. So, following that, it is left to the school and the parent and the child that we can to partake the educational concessions which can be given. So can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is the suggested flow for identification and certification of children with SLD, and so this is all available on the bill on the website. If you want, you can click a picture of it, and then we move on to the next slide, please. Yeah. So what does the
Excuse me, ma'am. There is a beep sound from your end. Is it?
do you hear an echo from my end?
Yeah. Can we stop or do something because it's a little disturbing?
Not echo, it is a beep.
1 second, just give me some time. Let me check what is happening. Is this better?
Yes, ma'am. Now better.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Sorry for that. Yeah. So
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah. No. So again, to the Act, that what the Act gives is a right to free education from 6 to 18 years for benchmark disabilities, reservation in education. So in addition to the concessions which are there, which we are all aware of, that is extra time, reader, writer, mathematics, lower grade, exemption from graphs, etc., that we are all aware of. What I would like to highlight this is that there is a reservation of 5% for all benchmark 21 disabilities in government and aided higher institution. And when it comes to job, and this is where we need to do a permanent certification. So I ask of you that whenever you have, please guide the parents accordingly, that just at 14 years and 10th standard, it doesn't stop, it goes much beyond. And I will be describing in the further slides what is the online process which is now available. So government jobs of 4% in each cadre, or 4%, 4 to 5% for all disabilities. And so if you subdivide it, it is 1% for ASD, ID, and SLD, or mental illness at entry level. Now, in promotion, it depends, it is left, the center has left to the state to issue instructions time to time. In addition, there are special schemes related to land procurement, etc., and certain schemes which the government has for, say, if you want to start to be an entrepreneur and start some of your own programs, then there are certain schemes also which the government allows for. So next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. So this is the team. This was the pre-COVID era that we had celebrated the Dyslexia Awareness Week, and so that is a picture of it. Please, next slide, please. So coming to what, next slide, please. Yeah. So the evaluation process at Sign LD Clinic, it would be again a school referral letter issued from the counter, and along with it, now we made that we ensure that we give you a eye and ear checkup along with the learning disability paper. The OPDs are available Wednesday, Saturday. Child is attended by a pediatrician, pediatric neurologist. In fact, my fellows look after the OPD along with me and my associate professor, and we do a clinical interview exam. In case if you're suspecting ADHD, we do give CRS or Vanderbilt form, parent and teacher, which was as expected, that they report back to us. And at the time of post-screening, once the child is enrolled at the LD clinic, which is manned by our coordinator and the admin team, you receive an information sheet and appointment forms, and a pre-test counseling used to be done in the pre-COVID era. Please, next slide, please. Since it was a group counseling. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. So at the LD clinic, as per laid by the rules, which is laid by the bill, we do the neurologist testing, the psychologist, we do IQs by these tests. Psychoeducational tests are done depending on the certification requirement as per the state board, as per the school board, because we know that the requirements for the state, the ICSC, the CBSC, and the IB are different. So if the IQ score is more than 85, an enhanced battery for LD, Woodcock-Johnson, RATS, curricular based assessment is done. For all scores, for all children, we do a curricular based assessment, and for IQs less than 80 to 85, we do have curricular based assessment, and for the NIS board, we have a different format for assessment. Each board's requirement is different, and so we use different protocols for each board. Now, coming to what we follow really is the IQ achievement discrepancy model, which is used for diagnosis of SLD, that is identifying the gap between the predicted academic achievement and the actual potential. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah, so this is the procedure at Sion Hospital. We have now we have a Sion Hospital website, which is www.ltmgh.com. If you go on the website, you go on to the sub part of LTM Medical College, you go to the departments, you go to pediatrics, and then you go for LD certification. You find the entire process, which is listed up here, and the important instructions displayed on the website. We also have a landline and a helpline number, which is available on weekdays, and an email process where you can send us your queries or inquiries or whatever. So please see that this is the website, and this is how we have to once reach to the LD certification. This, right? So next slide, please. So the services offered at the clinic, in addition to counseling, attention enhancement, we do give them, tell them the importance of exercise, sleep, diet, time management, etc. We used to have peer group support parties, etc. And the new feature is, of course, accessibility, wider accessibility with the helpline, which our current dean has inculcated, the emails, the website. We used to have week celebrations, etc. Now, coming to the role of the hospital and the committee is that we've been called since the extension of the guidelines and reservations are there. In adults also, we are now called as experts for job committees, be it banks, be it the UPSC program, etc. We also called in court cases and say anything ranging from land disputes to forgery, to everything, to the courts for as experts. And recently, as I was telling you, that because of the immense pressure in our culture for education as a base for starting of any kind of, for adulthood to be established, we have now the certificates are being verified, and a lot of fraudulent certificates have come under under the verification committee purview. This generally happens when the children apply for higher education. So we have CBI inquiries, we have a lot of inquiries going on. In fact, they found a racket of verification of fake certificates running at Navi Mumbai, and those people are behind bars. That happened about 4 to 5 years.
Excuse me, Dr. Mona Gajri, sorry to interrupt in between.
Yeah.
But can you pace it a little slowly, or?
Okay, should I be slow? Okay. So I will not be able to complete on time if that is the case. But
yeah, I guess so, but we've received some feedback, so I thought just...
And of course, along with that, we have had a lot of research activities done in journals, conferences. We have a fellowship program which is dedicated to learning disability. In fact, it was a first of its program, which was started for post-MD students. And for post-MD students, this was started it was an international collaboration with the US Medical College about 7 years back. Until now, we have continued the program. So annually, we take an intake of 2 medical post-MD students for the fellowship program. In addition to that, see, learning disability, since the pediatricians are now being made an authority for certifying, we are fighting or we are trying to push to our local, the DMER, which heads for the medical curriculum for to inculcate at least something, a chapter or a subchapter on learning disabilities and invisible disabilities or benchmark disabilities for the MBBS curriculum as well as the MD curriculum. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are some of the articles which are there. Yeah, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, right. So previous slide, please. Can I have the previous slide? Yeah, thank you so much. So the role of language and multilingual children with suspected dyslexia. This is the recent publication which happened in 2020. And I urge you that you please go on the website and Google it and look at it, because this is the one of the first paper coming out of India about how to do testing and what tests should be specific for multilingual children, that is almost all our population, and what should one take the role of ILAB and DALI, etc. And this is the only paper which has come out about what is actual, how many children were certified and what were the trials, and what are the recommendations for the DALI coming out, and how it is under revision because of this paper which is coming out. It is a pilot study, and we will see that further. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah, so talking about linkages that we have among the schools and centers and the hospitals, of course, the primary thing is we have a linkage with the schools, definitely. We have a lot of private agencies, like say children who want to appear from, doing private 10th, or NGOs from NIOs who are studying from home. So we have linkages to them. A lot of trust NGOs which run special schools or boarding schools, they are linked to us. We get children from the government camps, which are run by the SSA. SSA stands for Sarva Shikshan Abhiyan, which is a flagship program which is there. And so what really happens in children with government-aided school or private schools, if they ask for, the SSA runs a camp of identifying disability. So once they have a disability which is suspected, they have these screener tools with them. So I'm talking about all the 21 benchmark disabilities. And if they suspect certain children with disabilities, they are referring these children to our clinic at the hospital for diagnosis and certification processes. We have linkages, as I said, there are multiple disabilities present. So we have linkage with almost all the other disabilities, which are OPDs, which are in our hospital. We have almost all the vision, hemophilia, ortho, etc. All these OPDs which are running. We have linkages with non-certifying hospitals. So we get, say, children from other peripheral hospital. Corporation has a huge network of 4 medical colleges, 1 dental college, about 16 to 18 peripheral hospitals, and about 25 dispensaries, 6 specialty hospitals. So all these hospitals refer the children to us. We have linkages with the professional colleges. We've had children coming at the age of 23, 24, 25. A lot of cases to talk about. This is not the forum, neither do we have the time to go through it. So we've, with the colleges have picked up and they are referred to us. Of course, as I told you, from job agencies, also we get a referral, and we are now linked more for their job selection committees. And of course, with the verifying bodies, which are laid by either the higher institutes or even local verifying bodies, say the HSC, state board, NIOS bodies, which send us certificates for verification if they think of it being a fraudulent certificate. Next slide, please. So the cost involved in SLD, I'm sure everybody's thinking about the same thing. So from municipal hospital, government aided, and children who are for lower social or economic background, we have a system in place where we refer to our social worker. He defines what is the income class they come through, and either they help in the certification program or the assessments are done free of cost. In case if it is government aided or private school, then as I've written, as per social worker recommendation, the donations are collected. Next slide, please. So the current process for certification, which I have defined and which is available on our website, is almost similar to the 3 municipal hospitals. And even before the RPWD Act 2016, these hospitals have been established as certifying authorities. Sion was, of course, the first since 1995. We complete more than 2.5 decades. And NIAR has been since 2005, and KM, of course, from 2010. So after 2016 and 2018, after the Maharashtra government GR or the Gazette saying, they have defined and identified more of municipal government hospitals in Mumbai and Maharashtra are in the process of being recruited and authorized as medical authorities for certification. In fact, there was a huge program which was run by the DMER, which stands for Directorate of Medical Education and Education. So this regulatory, so this body recruited almost 2,000 odd psychologists and special educators across the state. This is a state government run program in which training was given. We are in the process of budgeting for purchase of tests, etc. There is a High Court ruling where the Honorable High Court had taken up this case as a suo motu in cognizance to the different processes of certification which was happening in the state. This was in about 2016, 15, 16, 14, 16, I think. And so the High Court had given a judgment that in every district at the school level and at the medical college level or district hospital level, there has to be a certifying authority or certifying committees present. So next slide, please. So I think we have gone through the entire, this is the current process, or the revised process is almost the same. The first 2-3 points are the same. What we offer at Sion and NIAR is an offline certification program. NIAR is of course going on online, but we offer an offline certification program. But after the act has come in, there's the central government has laid down and is putting up a network of registration online. So then the benefits, and there is a checklist of who is applying for what, and all this data is stored. In fact, this is a program which is running for all disabilities, and this is the UDID program. So unique ID disability, program. And you have to, what the children has to do, or you would be also seeing from your school, is that the Swavalamban, it is a Swavalamban website that one has to go to, and the details of the child along with his age, the school letter, referral letter, etc. More importantly, the Aadhaar card, the photo has to be uploaded from the UDID within 15 days to a month. You will then get this referral, whether you get it in Cooper, Sion, KEM, etc. The hospitals are listed depending on the location of the child and the what is put up in the address. And then the child has to go with that referral to the hospital, come to the hospital, the certification is done, our offline certification is done. They go back to the UDID registration from where it was issued and give them the certificate. Once that certificate is given, the offline certificate which is given from the clinic is given to them, then the UDID person sitting there, we have the UDID registration happening in the first floor of our OPD building. The UDID person takes the certificate and enters the details online. Once it is online entered, the child will then get a UDID card, which is similar to an Aadhaar card, within 1 month by post at home. And the certificate is available if the parent want a copy on the website within 7 to 15 days. This all will be guided by the UDID person who's at the registration desk. So this UDID registration is extremely important, especially after 18 years of age and even before, to avail of concessions for educational, job, after 18 for job, reservations, and financial benefits which the Act offer. So now all private schools, clinics, NGOs are requested to go on the UDID registration and streamline that process and access this and send the child along with the parent with the referral note to the particular LD referral center which has been noted. Can we please go on to the next slide, please? Yeah. So now coming to a particular mention was request was put up by Madam Asmita that if we could have a background of what the other states are doing. I'm very proud to say that state of Maharashtra was the first state to come up with the certification program, authorities, etc. So, you know, like looking at the next state or the other states, how. Now, Karnataka is was always very active, and they have a very strong group there. And there are 3 government hospitals which are medical authorities for certification there. The NIMHANS, on which the test is based, Bangalore St. John's Hospital, and ASH, or All India Institute for Speech and Hearing from Mysore. And assessments to be done in this particular state is NIMHANS test battery for SLD. Next slide, please. In Kerala, till 2016, the certificate along with assessments had to be sent, was done by a psychiatrist of any government hospital and about assistant surgeon, and this was accepted. The report, however, needed to be specified whether what deficit was there, and it has to be countersigned by the district educational officer. So, but however, there have been some discrepancies between this offline process and the UDID, the online process. And as I know of today, the system is under review. Next slide, please. Can I have the next slide, please? Then we go to Delhi. Presently, the central government institute recognized medical authority is the IBHAS, which is Institute of Human Behavioral and Allied Sciences. The Central Education Board, as we know, situated in Delhi. The ICSE grants exemption only on recommendation, as we are all aware of, by recommendations or the certificate along with the recommendations sent by the principal. And for the CBSE, in addition, we need 10 years of academic records. As I know, I'm aware, I think for some time back, the AIIMS was also, AIIMS New Delhi, the neurology division there, headed by Dr. Shefali Gulati, also do conduct tests for certification for SLD now. Next slide, please. West Bengal, Department of Psychology, and Mano Chetana Manovikas Kendra in Tamil Nadu. It is done by Institute of Medical Health. In Telangana, it is Nilofer, Gandhi Hospital, Irigada Institute. I thank at this point, I would like to acknowledge the efforts put by the MBA team to help me, especially Masarat, to help me with the testing, etc., and the hospitals at these various states. Next slide, please. In Goa, what has happened is that the Goa government realized, of course, the benefits of the testing, but what they are offering is they're providing financial benefit in terms of transport, etc., to children with special needs for promoting inclusion. But there are no focus guidelines as to how certification should happen is what I know from my colleagues there. Though a couple of students who have done their fellowship from our state are now in Goa, and they're pushing and they're pleading with the authorities, and they're trying to streamline the whole process there. In Gujarat also certain certification policies are followed. The aim to project this was to have a broader view of what is happening in our neighboring states, and also to have an understanding that a lot of other states where the certification is not done, these children are coming from all over the states, and sometimes even from UAE as well as Singapore, Malaysia, where the CBSE international curriculum is followed, South Africa, etc., for their certifications. Next slide, please. So coming on to whether online was possible. So in COVID-19 gave us some, we were forced to revise our way of thinking, and we tried to follow an online mode, and we saw that is audiovisual and video mode. We saw that this was possible for neurological examination only. It was not possible for psychoeducational because these are paper pencil tests. So the neurological test we could do online, but that was, or rather neurological history and examination looking at the patient video could be done, but the other tests were not possible. And of course, limited technical support either from the parent end, or sometimes our networks were not really working efficiently. Next slide, please. Talking of the UDID, Unique ID for Persons with Disability. This is a national database for PWD and issuance of a UDID card. The aim is to provide uniformity in delivering government benefits, and also to build up an end-to-end integrated system so that benefits like educational, financial, employment can be provided. Also, the government gets a data of what is really having from district level to the metros across the state and the national level. Next slide, please. So the current strengths of the system, we know that SCRT is a very active body. In fact, they have put up on their website, along with the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, a leaflet about screening programs which are available. And and they are, of course, the main body which provide training and design resource material for improving the quality of education. SSA is the flagship program of Government of India to achieve elementary education across the country. Next slide, please. We are looking forward to the rollout of the NEP. The NEP is a very flexible program. It has divided the primary education or elementary education, instead of 10+2, to a different whole setup. There can be entry of the children or exit through multiple pathways. Vocational or skill building is given enhancement. There are vocational education internships starting from grade 6. There's a clear-cut guideline railed down that how the teachers should be trained, what are the standards for teaching, how the assessment has to be done under the Parakh system, what are the accreditation processes for the school, and linking it with the higher education. So this is, once it rolls out, I think the rolling out is going to be starting in December this year, or maybe earlier Jan, or it's already started. I think it is our responsibility to make it a success. Next slide, please. So current field challenges, I think I have only 5 minutes. Asmita madam, can I continue ahead? Am I?
Yeah, we have buffer time for the so I think, yeah, you can go ahead. And then there are so many questions, so we'll keep.
Yeah, sure. So current field challenges, we know that there are many screening processes, there are non-uniform checklists, but I think we don't need really, from my experience, like a one screening process, because we are multilinguals, we have different educational teaching ways in different, even in our own state. I'm not even talking about state, even in Mumbai per se, we have a different schools catering to a different socioeconomic class. And so we need screening processes, I feel, which are individualized. The problem with the referral system is once, and I'm sure you as special educators, counselors, psychologists would agree that even after the referral is given by the principal, and we see that at the ground level at the hospitals, that by the time the child comes to us, it is usually 9th standard, though the referral may have given till 5th standard. And this is where the role of stigma comes in, and this is where the role of the school committee comes in, screening committee, just not referring for the educational, but taking care of their mental health also, and trying to destigmatize, explaining to them now it will be easy that there are job reservations and this etc., which is there available for these children if certified to be SLD. Role of the hospitals, I personally feel that the diagnosis should be happening at the schools. We should be only present, we should be only there to, the hospital's role should be there in case there is a suspect of a SLD mimic, and the hospital's role should be limited, because purely this is an educational thing. So there are a lot of system, what is happening presently is a lot of overlap between the system, and there's no clear cut single channel of communication. And that is why the child has to go, or the parents have to go pillar post after school, then there is a hospital, then there's the UDID, then the technical, the higher education, etc., etc. Then the role of therapy. A lot of children are ADHDs, almost 50%. In our papers, we published that almost 50% would be ADHD. So these children are advised therapy. However, they do not take therapy. We have seen children that ADHD have a similar mimic on testing, on curriculum testing, versus similar to LD. And we've seen children on therapy improve much better when their attention improves. So we usually recommend medications to them and follow up. Now, ADHD or SLD, we know they are invisible. There is no blood biomarker to know whether the child has ADHD. It is only from inputs that we get from y'all that we know whether the ADHD, and assessment by us to know whether the ADHD is present. So we definitely, I want to pass on this message. If the medication is given by a qualified medical health professional, please ensure that the parents do take the medication. There is a specific need for it. Also, unlike diabetes, we cannot, as I said, there is no biomarker to identify. We can identify whether the child is controlled on a particular dose only from feedback that we get from you and the parents, and when the parents visit us in the OPD. That is the reason why we call them after every 15 days, because these medications, as for everything, as per the Newton's law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So there are side effects with this medication. So we call them to see for side effects and the effects. Now in the COVID pandemic, things have, our referrals have been very less because, and of course, third wave affecting the pediatrics has not yet begun. So there is a lot of backlog, and we await that once the school reopen after Diwali, there will be a huge rush. Already the queues are long and waiting. We in our hospital itself at Sion, we see about maybe 50,000 children and adults monthly in the OPD. In the LD clinic, we see about, I think about maybe 1,000, not 1,000, but 500 or only for the LD screening. And from the Department of Pediatrics, we see about 7,000 children in the OPD monthly, because we have all specialties ranging from neurology, hematology, cancer, hemophilia services, thalassemia, and cardiology, etc. So there's a huge volume. My doctors, which are there with me and my doctor team, look after general pediatrics, neurology, epilepsy, autism, and LD. Okay, so long waiting queues, and these parents have to queue up outside the OPD along with the general queue. Assessments, we know that there is the NIMHANS battery is under revision. The current battery which we are using needs to be revised, and NIMHANS is under the processing of reviewing the SLD battery. There is no single test for SLD diagnosis, just as there is no biomarker. So we have to have a comprehensive testing battery, and it has to be child specific, and that increases the waiting times, and that increases the number of visits. And again, the problem is depending on the school board. So the ICSE has a format which is there. The CBSEs want in a different manner. The IB wants in a different manner. The NIS wants a different particular set of tests to be done. Again, that increases the waiting time. When the children appear for entrance exam, recently we won the case for reservation for MBBS students, because other than only for engineering, the admissions, there was a reservation, but not for MBBS student. It is now currently 3%. We are looking forward that the GR comes to increase it to the 5% BMD, that is benchmark disabilities. So for entrance exam, again, a different format has to be done. For admission process is a different format. For jobs, it is different. So that again takes a huge time for revision. So you understand that the test performed is based on all these factors. It's not just like one single test. And sometimes despite doing these tests, we are nowhere, and we need to do additional, and I'm not even talking about ancillary services like occupational therapy, etc., which we rope in if we are suspecting dyspraxia or developmental coordination disorders. Coming to fraudulent behaviors, as I said, there's a lot of emphasis in India on education. So we come across a lot of fraudulent behaviors at multiple levels for the compulsion for the a positive certificate. So when there is fraudulent behavior, we have a whole process which is set in, and we have to follow that process. Once that is cleared off, then go on to the LD. If there is a ADHD comorbidity, that has to be sorted, then go on to the LD third. So every time there is a mental health issues, these children have anxiety, some have depression, that has to be sorted out, and then we go on to the procedure. So every time there's a comorbidity attached, the time increases. So fraudulent behaviors, we have seen pretense, malingering by the parents, the childs, etc. Even up to the certificates. As I told you, there were fake certificates which were getting produced at a particular place in Navi Mumbai. It is an invisible disability, so quite frankly, even the parents don't believe, or sometimes even the child or the teacher doesn't believe that there is an LD and the child is faking it, and that used to definitely happen earlier times. There's non-empathy for this disorder by the society versus, say, thalassemia, hemophilia, where the child needs blood every 3 weekly. Everybody is like, empathizing with the child, but this is a not so much empathy from the society as peers. And most importantly, since it is educational, the child, the parent, the school, and all one who are connected with this child just forget about it at the age of 10 standard or 12 standard, and once they are in higher education. So the advocacy is not carried out. See, for all programs, for a representation in the government or in political services, there has to be a good advocacy. And the advocacy is always driven by the parents and not by the authorities. So the parents and the supporting staff, like you teachers, etc., at the ground level, that which is the main driver across all advocacy programs that I've seen in muscular dystrophies, epilepsy, etc. It's all thalassemia itself and hemophilia. We have a very strong parent support groups. SLD mimics that we come across is rural, urban divide. We know that again different set of tests required depending on the environment. We see children coming from Dharavi, we see children coming from South Bombay. Motivation level by the child, the school, and the environment. Any neurological conditions, Wilson's, etc. These are all medical conditions, SSP, etc., epilepsies, ADHD, which can mimic as SLD. So all these are ruled out when a pediatric neurologist fellow or my team sits in the OPD, and this is ruled out primarily there. Next slide, please. Remediation, coming to remediation, availability of resource rooms are limited, lack of trained teacher, career guidance specific for SLD is lacking in a mass scale compared to what it should be. And everybody talks, even in career guidance, I've seen the standard mainstream branches. Offbeat road in terms of entrepreneurship or something is less defined. So I think we need to do something specific in that, this and vocational places. We should not forget the psychological impacts of bullying, parental pressure, school dropout, substance abuse, huge numbers that I see in our specific population. Next slide, please. So again, coming to multilingual, we are all multilinguals. For me, I speak Marathi, Hindi. I do understand Gujarati and English being our language for communication at professional and professional and after schooling, right? So again, as I said, informal assessments have to be done in our population versus say the developed country where English is their primary language, and they may have Hispanic in US, in Australia they have their own natives, etc. But in India we have languages for the state, the formula of division of state was done based on the language. So we have those kind of, that many states, that many languages are there. So we can't have one size fit all. We do have an English test, but we have to supplement with the language. So how do we, try and come across this? I don't say it is a foolproof method, but this is almost successful 90% of the time. Comprehensive historical records. So you as teachers are an important part of giving us the history record, because primarily how the child has been. We take reports also from the tuition teacher, which are a major part, especially in big classrooms from the state board. Comprehensive evaluation by PSP, that is post-scholastic performances by our doctors, medication. We do curriculum-based assessment, oral, written, in all three languages, making the environment, the test environment, little more comfortable, conducive to the child, giving breaks if required, instruction translated to a language which is comfortable, rule out pretense, and then joint conferencing of the interdisciplinary team members by my team, which have been, of course, very kind to help me with the slides also today, so I acknowledge them too. And the joint conferencing role of the interdisciplinary team members is extremely important for a final diagnosis. So LD Act per se is all about the team, and one function, only a single person making the diagnosis is not possible. Next slide, please. So what are the challenges of the system? Challenges are in the policies. So inclusion is, of course, the key for current educational policy. But having said that, there is no defined on paper policy detailing how inclusion has to be done. Everyone talks inclusion, but how it has to be done, like how the RPWD has laid down the certification part and who is authority, that kind of policy is not detailed. So we definitely need to work on that. So though, as I said, as per the ruling of the Maharashtra State Honorable High Court ruling to the state government, that though once the child gets a certificate, be it third standard, fourth, fifth, concessions have to be given. But schools are generally resistant to that because they feel they will dilute the effect of education in that child. And of course, there's an untold, unsaid reluctance among educational professionals, mental health professionals, that maybe it is, reluctance, or there is fraudulent behavior, or parents are trying to take a shortcuts, etc. Now, coming to the system that we are in currently, it's a very rigid system. I accept there are long lines. As I said outset, I don't think hospital is a place where the child should come for a certificate. It is school thing, and they have to have some kind of a network, has to be built up where the certification can come. We can form a referral center where there is associated comorbidities coming in. So I accept that our children who are unwilling to come, because quite frankly, anyone would be traumatized waiting in the sign outside the registration OP desk, because we have multiple adults coming up either with limb problem, open wounds, burns, etc. And so it is not ideal setup. Long wait periods and dearth of trained mental health professionals. Next slide, please. So current system challenges, as I said, stigma. School committees have to be a little more intense in their referral system. Multilingualism is of course a challenge, and it's going to remain and not go away. So we need to modify the test, and the assessor also has to adapt to that. Referral logistic. For a long time, we have been impressing on the government that just under the aegis of the Disability Commissioner, we should have a single channel, at least for LD, to have a coordination system which exists between the schools, the hospitals, the boards, the DMER, the DMER for the medical angle, and coordination between the hospital boards, etc., central government and judiciary. Because see, at the end of the day, the certificate carries a big, it's got huge implication now, implications, especially with the job reservation now, defined job reservation and government, lot of beneficiary schemes. Assessments, we know, I talked about it, no one size fits all, it has to be individualized. Again, higher educational needs are immense. Or different process for entrance exams. Foreign universities need a total different set of documents which are required for admission. As I talked about, advocacy has to be parent driven, and a strong advocacy program to get us in at the table at the national level and the state level for the streamlining to happen and to create a strong political will. Role of AI is immense in education. And also as a peer buddy, Miko, etc., are some AIs which I have been working with, and they're excellent. We do not stop only at the school level, but even beyond adolescence, at adolescence and adulthood, these learning issues can manifest in different ways. They may not be in education, but signing a plain checkbook, or going through, if they have their own, they are the entrepreneurs and going through their own audit of the system which is there, etc. All that takes time, and they may face issues with that, and there's no one guiding them. Eventually, I've seen that these children usually devise their own mechanisms for overcoming the problem. Next slide, please.
Yeah, ma'am, we can just see the time. And
I know, yeah. So these are the limitations. I think this is an overlap. These are the challenges that we are facing. I think next slide, please. So just some suggested future policies, and we stop. Early identification, early screening, counseling, one platform, linkages through all the authorities under the aegis of the Disability Commissioner for the state. Promoting inclusive education, role of judiciary, also awareness has to be created. We are part of some information which goes to the judiciary. We do take part in when we are invited to discuss about what exactly learning disability is all about. Next slide, please. So these are my references, and thank you for a patient hearing. And I think we have some questions. Let's begin with it.
Thank you, Mona ma'am, for such an informative session. Our chat box is filled with questions, and our participants are really eagerly waiting to answer their questions. So now I'll request Ms. Jovia to take over and share the participants' question with Ms. Mona ma'am. So over to you, Ms. Jovia.
Thank you, Vinita ma'am. As said before, there are a lot of questions. So because our sessions are time fenced, we'll be doing a select few. The first question is, MISIC was standardized a few decades back without any revision. Is it still advisable to use it?
As I said, that this is what the Act gives us, MISIC. I'm not sure whether it is under revision. KBI has also been asked for, but we do use other testing tools for IQ testing if required in the child. We know that for higher education, for the ICSE and all these tests, we use the WISC-4, etc. I detailed out in my previous slides that these are the tests that we are using. We are using the WISC, we are using the MISIC, we use the KBI, we use the WISC-4 if and when required, and WAYS also, because we do get adults now for testing.
Okay, ma'am. The second question is, can DALI be administered at school? And if yes, who is authorized to perform this assessment?
Sorry, I didn't catch that question. Could you please repeat?
Yes, ma'am. Can DALI, Dyslexia Assessment for Languages of India, be administered at school? If yes, who is authorized to perform this assessment?
The DALI and the iLab has to be administered together. I believe in the DALI manual itself, it is written that a teacher or a psychologist can administer the DALI, and it is a screening tool, please. It is not a diagnostic tool. And as of now, it is only looking for dyslexia. We hope that they are again under revision after a pilot study which was published. We realized that it needs to be revised in a way which is more suitable for diagnosis. So A, we are looking for diagnosis now in the revision, and B, we are looking at including dysgraphia and dyscalculia also indicators for the testing. So we hope that the DALI comes in a revised way. We also hope, because DALI is available in 4 to 5 Indian languages, we also hope that once it comes out and it is commissioned by the central government, we hope that once it comes out and we run a trial in the field, then the adaptations again after it has been tested in states and this, we can recommend it to for a change or amendment in the RPW Act, where the DALI can be used. Yeah. Next.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Sorry, ma'am, for the disturbance. We move on to the next question. Apart from GLAD, is there any other assessment tool for specific learning disability at middle school, which can be used in schools by special education teachers?
I believe the educators are using WJ, which can be which in resource rooms where has been bought by the school. So Woodcock Johnson of course can be used. Your curriculum based assessments are very good, and which can be used by the teacher as a TET kind of a thing. Teachers examination test can be used, which is based on the curriculum based test. And so all these tests can definitely, and the RAT can be used in these children. So all these tests can definitely help us in testing, even in middle school.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. Moving on to the next question.
Yeah.
Once a child is certified as having learning disability from a government hospital, is it valid all over India?
Yes, it is. So that is the thing. That if we go for after the offline certificate, if the child yeah, thank you, Simran. So if we go for online certification after that, once it is registered online in the national database and the child gets a UDID card, okay, and a certificate which is printed, signed by the due authorities, it cannot be challenged anywhere for India or the Union territories, or even for South Africa, Malaysia, UAE, where they run the CBSE international program.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. Moving on to the next question. Who can administer the NIMHANS battery? Is it a psychologist or a special educator?
I believe the NIMHANS battery I think the testing material contains that it has to be administered by a psychologist or but you see the certifying board or the authorities. In that, it is either a clinical or rehab psychologist is compulsory. The special educator or a teacher trained or OTist is not. So I listed 3 people. in that. The doctor, the psychologist, and OT stroke special educator, but it is 2 or 3. Okay, so it could be a special educator, it could be a special teacher, etc. So all that is part of the committee per se. All right, so I would say anyone who's comfortable using it, either from all these people, the psychologist, the occupational therapist, or the special educator, they are trained and part of the committee, they can use the enhanced spectrum.
Thank you, ma'am. Since we have time constraints, we'll be moving to 2 last questions.
Yeah.
What is the time required for the entire assessment procedure?
Okay, so again, talking of the volume of work that we are doing at government hospitals, again reiterating that we don't want to be, we would like that the process happens at the schools. Our waiting times are huge. It is about, it could be earliest 1 month and up to 3 to 4 months is our wait times. So about 3, with a streamlined system, with the administration now streamlined much better, we hope it is 3 to 4 months, but that is the maximum that I can do for you. Although minimum is a month, that is the minimum which is done for. And so we request that, you know, if you go through the online system, you will find a hospital which is nearby. And of course, it will be beneficial for you to get the card, because that is where your future benefits for permanent certification, etc. will come in.
Okay, ma'am. We take a final question.
Yeah.
If the child has applied for UDID before 18 years of age, does he or she need to apply again after 18 years?
Yes, definitely. So after even less than 18 years of age, as I said, now the whole process from 8 onwards, 8 years onward, has moved on online on the www.swavalamban.com website. Okay, so on the online UDID, so even less than 18 years of age, be it 17 years 11 months also, it is considered as a temporary certificate, and the card is a temporary card. As soon as the child is 18 years, the child has to reapply as per the government guidelines for a permanent disability certificate and approach the competent authorities for the same. Yes, so after less than 18, to answer your question, the UDID card, though received, will be considered as a temporary card.
Thank you, Dr. Mona Gajre, ma'am, for imparting your knowledge and as well as answering and resolving our queries. Now I hand over to Vinita, ma'am, to proceed with the event.
Yes. So, ma'am, again, thank you for patiently answering so many questions. Now I invite Betty Abraham, ma'am, Assistant Professor at the Department of Special Education, SNDT University, to sum up the session and offer vote of thanks.
Thank you, Vinita. And thank you, Asmita ma'am, for this opportunity. I'd like to say thank you, Mona ma'am. The session was very, very informative. And what really struck me was you've kind of laid bare the entire process and the system of certification. And really, it's very beneficial for us as educators who are actually the lead-in to the entire process, that we have this kind of a perspective that will allow us to guide the families, the parents, to ensure that the entire process becomes a little more easy for them. I know there's nothing that we can do in terms of the timelines and everything, but at least in terms of setting the expectations and knowing what exactly is going to happen, what's the first step, the second step, and so on. Also, giving us that perspective of the process from various angles, from the point of applying for the process, what exactly happens through it, what the kind of tests that would be used, who are the people who would be involved. It creates a very strong base for us to ensure that the referrals are happening in a timely manner and the process is seen to conclusive end and not abandoned in between because of delays and other challenges that may be faced by the families. What was sort of like the icing on the cake, and I really thank Asmita ma'am for asking you to do that, is giving us the glimpses into other states, the way they manage their assessment. So that really helps. We have a lot of families, and it's been my personal experience also, where they would families would come and ask, I'm in this state, how do I go? Or I'm transferring from this state to that state, what's going to happen? Now we have at least something to tell them, give them a little guideline, who they can approach, which hospital. So thank you so much for that. And it was a very, very informative session. I think we all are walking away today feeling empowered and knowing a lot more about the referral process, which is a little bit mystical in certain areas and spaces. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you for the kind acknowledgement. It was, I would like to acknowledge my team for helping me put together the slides, and of course Masrat from the MDA to help me locate on help me understand the process which is happening in the state. And thank you, Asmita ma'am, again for the kind invite. It was a pleasure talking in this session. Thank you very much. I believe I like to say, I believe Madam is going to provide the email ID and the phone numbers at the later on. So if anyone, please free to contact on the email ID. That is my personal email ID and of the clinic, and my personal number at the clinic. But if you want to contact the right person to contact for learning disability way, is go to the website and check out the SIAN email ID there, as well as the early clinic helpline. Thank you for a patient hearing. Thank you. Nice meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mona ma'am, and thank you, Betty ma'am, for summing up the session so well and for your words of gratitude. Now I invite Nisha Kutty ma'am to share closing remarks. Over to you, Nisha ma'am.
There was a question in the chat box about checklist and how to train the teachers, mainstream school teachers, about various disabilities, identifying various disabilities.
Okay.
Screen you can see the tool that has been developed by Harshvardhani College of Special Education. It is available in Marathi and English, and it's a tool. It's a checklist. Identify 7 disabilities. So please make a note of it. If anybody wants to use it for applying it or conducting research, training program, feel free to contact us. Over to you, Nisha Kutty.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Urvashi, would you like to say something, or shall I go ahead?
You can go ahead. I think I said.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Yeah. Good morning, one and all. So this is standard instructions again. We will be sharing the PPT of Dr. Gajre with all the participants shortly. Type 1 participants, just a gentle reminder to go through the PPT and type 1 participants, just a gentle reminder to go through the PPT and then attempt the post test. The retest link will be shared post 9:30 p.m. So only those who have not scored at least 8 out of 10 should attempt the retest. Also, one important point, I had also put it in the group, that the retest links will be open till 30th October midnight. So don't be in a hurry to give the test. Also, I request all the participants to kindly give their feedbacks when the feedback link will be shared in their respective groups. Now we take a 15 minutes break. Since it's a small break, preferably do not leave.
Nisha Kutty, can I just say a word here?
Yes, ma'am.
There was a wonderful suggestion in the chat box about kind of a symposium involving Dr. Mona Gajre, Alka ma'am, and